So this is a sample of a potential study note style called three-column notes. And I like to use this style for math particularly because people often think it's just about doing math and doing the same problems over and over again. And really, studying for math is about thinking logically about what you need, what you have, and how to bridge that gap between what you have and what you need. So in grade 9 math, you guys will be doing a whole unit, quite a few units on the line. And what I've done in the concept column is really create 3 questions. You can create a number of different questions about this unit, but questions help guide thinking. And that's one of the best ways to study, is to identify a series of questions that then, once you're finished studying, you can easily answer without looking at notes. And you have the thinking so that when you come to the math problem, the thinking is there. And you just need to figure out with every individual question how to go about the process. It's not about memorization. It's about thinking. Your basic skills in math, such as algebra, isolating for a variable, using your how to solve an equation, skills and techniques, those need to be ingrained. Those are rote, absolutely. But when it comes to more advanced skills, such as finding the equation of a line, finding the equation of a quadratic in grade 10, for example, what it is it's the logical thinking process that's being tested, not necessarily your algebra. Then again, you do get marks on the algebra bits. So let's look at the second column. The second column is a series of notes. They're really my answers to the questions in language that I will understand. Yours will look very different than mine. But for example, let's take a look at what is a line? Well, for me, I know it's the shortest distance between 2 points. It's straight and it usually extends forever. Now, the big part about this is, and I've put this in bold, it must have 2 points for any equation of a line. So if I have 1 point and I don't know the other point, I don't know the line. I must have 2 points, or I must have a way to find out the 2 points. Also, the important part here is this unit will depend on your ability to know how to plot points on a graph, or what is actually called a Cartesian plane, which is what you see right here. And I've always put an example because the example is that visual cue that's going to help me remember, oh yeah, that's a line. Notice that I have all the criteria of a line in here. It's got my 2 points, it extends forever, see the arrows, and it's straight, and it's plotted, notice my points, on the graph. If you are rusty in terms of plotting on a graph, this must be practiced over and over and over again. And this is something that is very rote, practicing how to plot on a Cartesian plane. The second question I have is, what is a line segment? And this one's easy. It's everything above except it doesn't go on forever. So it's from point A to point B. I just wanted to make a distinction so that I knew for myself the difference between the two. Now here's the meat of the note. The meat of the note is, how can we create an equation of a line? Well, you will learn, or have learned, the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. And you're going to see these standard equations for the rest of your math career in high school. But what you need to know is what each portion of these equations are. So the y and the x are points, a point on the Cartesian plane. The m is a special number, and the b is a special number. The m is the slope of the line. And notice what I've put here. This is the equation of the slope. So it's your rise over your run. Don't worry if you aren't understanding right now. You will as you go through this math unit. And the b here is your y-intercept. So it's where the line hits the y-axis. So how do I find out the equation of a line? Well, there's 3 ways. I need to have the slope and a point, the slope and the y-intercept, or 2 points on the line. Well, what does that mean? Well, here are examples. If I have the slope, and the slope is 2, and I have a point, as I did up here, and a point is 3, comma 2, then I can do the following. Well, slope I know is m, so I just substitute the 2 for the m, and I have y equals 2x plus b. But I need to find b. How do I do that? Well, the only other information I'm given is a point, an x and a y. So I'm going to substitute them in for x. So 3 will go in for x and 2 will go in for y. Now this is where you're going to use the algebra skills you learned in grade 8. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. And then we've got 6 plus b, move the 6 over, 2 minus 6 becomes negative 4 is equal to b. So my final equation of a line is y equals 2x minus 4. So I've substituted what I found out b was for the place of b. Notice your y and your x stay because that's how an equation is done. An equation will always have two variables. The same thing is done for the B, option B, when you have a slope and a y-intercept. But this is the really easy one because, again, slope is m. So if my slope is 3, I substitute m for 3. There it is. And my y-intercept is 5. And we know b is the y-intercept. So I substitute my 5 for b. So my final is very simple. Y equals 3x plus 5. The third one is the most complex because you're given neither the y-intercept nor the slope, but you're given enough information to find both. When you have 2 points, as you do up here, you can find any line. Well, how? First, you need to find your slope. Go through the slope formula. I did so here. Now that I have my slope, I'm back up to this type of question. I use one of the points that I was given, substitute them for x and y, and I can find out algebraically that this is the equation of my line. So this format of study notes really helps me because I've narrowed down all the information to the bare necessities. Now when I go to study, if I'm doing a question and I'm like, how do I do this? I'm going to take a quick glance at this note. Also, if I'm given prompt sheets as an option, as an accommodation, what I can easily do is look at my examples and try to create memory cues from these examples. I wouldn't write these examples in my prompt sheet because that's not necessarily allowable. But I might say to myself, okay, I need to remember that X and Y are on these two lines, or I need to remember that I substitute. So maybe I'm going to put some arrows, etc. So this is one way of doing notes. Hopefully this is a great example for you when you're creating your study notes. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.